This story is a work of fiction, inspired by real events. Names, dates, locations, and identifying details have been changed or dramatized to protect privacy and enhance the narrative. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental or used fictitiously. This content is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not aim to glorify crime, promote violence, or pass judgment on real individuals. Viewer discretion is advised. Some scenes may contain mature, disturbing, or triggering content. What you are about to watch could have happened anywhere, to anyone. It's inspired by real events. Whispers of truth, buried beneath layers of fiction. We've changed the names, the dates, the locations, but the emotions, the betrayal, the fear, those are real. This story is not meant to accuse, only to reveal, to make you question, who do you really trust? If stories like this keep you thinking, long after they end, hit subscribe, smash like, and drop your theory in the comments. Now watch closely, before the truth disappears again.
Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds of a quiet South Dallas home, painting gold across warm brown cabinets and polished counters. The smell of syrup and butter filled the air while faint gospel hummed through a Bluetooth speaker, the kind of morning sound that felt like peace. Elena Carter flipped a pancake, smiling softly as the rhythm of her hum matched the flick of the pan. Her curls were tied up, her face fresh, calm, a picture of quiet strength. At the table, 10-year-old Eli Brooks tapped his fingers in steady rhythm, not impatient, just deliberate, his small world anchored in pattern and sound. He didn't talk much, but his laughter carried, light and genuine. Dr. Marcus Brooks leaned against the doorway, still in navy scrubs from a long night at the hospital. His eyes were tired, but a faint smile crossed his face as he watched them, the boy who'd once screamed through every meal, and the woman who somehow brought music back to their mornings. "Another all-nighter?" Elena asked, teasing softly. He nodded. 3 surgeries back to back. She turned back to the stove. "At least someone's saving lives around here." He smiled, but his gaze lingered a moment too long. Then, almost unconsciously, his thumb began to trace the edge of his wedding ring, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Outside, sprinklers hissed across perfect lawns. A jogger waved, a dog barked, and the Texas sun rose over another ordinary street. Inside, it was all warmth and light, or so it seemed. Peace hung in the air that morning, steady as the blinds rattling softly in the breeze. But sometimes, even sunlight hides what's coming. Elena Carter's world was made of small, human details, sticky notes on the fridge, grocery lists, and Bible verses taped near the sink. Her handwriting was neat, round, hopeful. The faint smell of coconut oil followed her wherever she went, lingering long after she'd left a room. She moved through the Brooks home like rhythm, precise, patient, gentle. Eli trusted her completely. When noise became too much, he'd rest his head against her shoulder, tracing the silver bracelet she never took off. It was a comfort ritual, one they never spoke about but both understood. To Marcus, Elena was more than a caretaker. She was order in chaos, the calm voice that brought his son out of meltdowns, the warmth that filled the empty house his late wife once ruled. He often said she was a blessing. Sometimes, he said it twice in the same day. But lately, gratitude sounded different. His voice lowered when he spoke to her, softer, not kind, not unkind, just changed. To the neighbors, everything looked picture perfect, a successful black surgeon, a kind young woman, and a boy learning how to smile again. On Sundays, Marcus left for church alone, suit crisp, Bible in hand. Elena stayed home. "Laundry day," she'd say. At night, she'd sit by her phone, texting her sister, almost saved enough for nursing school. "Maybe Houston next year." Her sister would reply, "You got this, girl." And for a moment, she'd believe it. But sometimes, late into the night, Elena would look around the quiet house, the folded blankets, the spotless counters, the walls too still, and she'd feel something watching her. Not a person, not a spirit. Just tension. One evening, she typed, "I think I need to leave sooner." Then she deleted it. The gospel radio played low. Eli slept soundly down the hall. And somewhere behind her, unseen, Marcus's shadow moved past the crack of the door. Outside, the neighborhood streetlights flickered. Inside, something invisible had already begun to change. By early March, the Brooks house had gone quiet. The laughter that once carried through the mornings was gone. Marcus came home later, his movements slower, the scent of whiskey lingering on his clothes. He no longer played the old gospel tunes that once filled the shower steam. Silence replaced song, and silence, in that house, was never innocent. Eli felt it first. He stopped humming to himself. He started covering his ears when footsteps echoed in the hallway. His tapping grew faster, sharper, almost frantic. Elena noticed. She noticed everything. She tried to hold peace together, longer hugs, more pancakes, extra patience. But love can't breathe in tension. One evening, Marcus stood in the kitchen staring at the framed photo of the three of them. His voice was low, almost tender. "He's been quiet," he said. "Different lately." Elena turned, folding a dish towel. "He just needs time. He's sensitive to change." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were tired, but not from work. "Maybe something's changed," he said again, quieter this time. The clock ticked between them. That night, Elena sat on the edge of her bed scrolling through her phone, half-typed messages she'd never sent glowing back at her. Her sister's latest text read, "Houston job fair next month, come stay with me." Elena smiled, typed back, then stopped. Something about the house felt off. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from rest, but from watching. She closed her phone, whispered a prayer she didn't finish, and stared at the ceiling. Across the hall, Marcus sat awake, thumb tapping the edge of his wedding ring, staring into the dark. In that moment, both of them were awake, one afraid, the other certain. The gospel station stayed off. And the silence didn't end. Friday, March 17th. Rain moved softly across South Dallas, tapping at windows like a metronome. Inside the Brooks home, everything was spotless, counters shining, blinds drawn, air thick with lemon cleaner and routine. At 7 a.m., Elena flipped pancakes while Eli built towers of blocks. It was an ordinary day. She even laughed once. Marcus watched from the doorway, quiet, smiling without warmth. "I'll be home late," he said. She nodded. "We'll be fine." At 8:15, his car left the driveway. At 8:33, his hospital badge scanned through the entrance at Methodist Dallas Medical Center. That night, at 6:48 p.m., Elena texted her sister, "Eli's calm today. Might go for ice cream tomorrow." Her sister replied with a heart emoji. It was never read. At 7:13, motion sensors picked up movement in the hallway, too tall for Eli, too light for Marcus. The camera blinked once, then went dark. At 7:17, Elena's smartwatch showed her heart rate spike to 153. At 7:19, it stopped. Neighbors later recalled hearing something faint. A soft thud, a muffled sound, then nothing. By 8 o'clock, the rain grew harder. The music that usually played during dinner stayed silent. When police entered the next morning, the house looked untouched. Plates washed, counters wiped, floors shining. But detectives see what ordinary eyes miss. A rug slightly crooked. A chair angled wrong. A hair tie near the baseboard. And then, the faint glow of luminol. Blue trails across the tile, mapping out a quiet struggle that moved from the kitchen toward the garage. Under a folded blanket, they found her. Elena Carter. Her wrist fractured, ribs bruised, throat marked with the unmistakable shape of human hands. The call to 911 came from Marcus himself. "My nanny's dead," he said flatly. "Looks like a break-in." But there was no broken window. No sign of forced entry. No missing items. Only silence. The kind too perfect to be real. Later that night, a neighbor swore she saw the porch light flicker 3 times before going dark. Inside, the gospel playlist still sat paused halfway through a song about mercy. By sunrise, the story had already broken. Tragedy in South Dallas, the local anchor's voice said over the morning news. Live-in nanny found dead in home of prominent surgeon. Police investigating possible home invasion. Outside, reporters gathered by the gate, cameras pointed at the quiet 2-story house that had once looked so ordinary. Inside, detectives worked in silence. No forced entry. No shattered glass. No sign of struggle beyond the kitchen. A single glove was found near the back fence, promising at first, then dismissed. It belonged to a paramedic from the scene. Then came the prowler theory. Construction workers nearby were questioned. Alibis checked, boots photographed. None matched the faint partial print under the kitchen rug. Next came the accident theory. Maybe she fell. Maybe she hit her head. But the bruising pattern on her arms wasn't from a fall, it was from resistance. The explanations collapsed one by one, and every road led back to the man who made the call. At 11:17 a.m., detectives replayed the 911 recording again. Marcus's voice was calm. Detached. "My nanny's dead. Looks like a break-in." He never said her name. He never asked if she could be saved. By Sunday night, the neighborhood came together again. Candles flickered along the sidewalk. Neighbors prayed, sang softly, and spoke of kindness, of loss, of fear. Detective Nia Thompson stood at the edge of the crowd, arms folded. Behind her, in the distance, the house stood dark, windows shuttered, lights off. Inside the station, photos and evidence lined a corkboard. Rug. Glove. Watch data. Partial print. Every thread circled back to the same place. The stranger theory died quietly that night. And suspicion came home. Under the cold fluorescent lights of the Dallas County morgue, Elena Carter's story began again, this time without words. The medical examiner worked in silence. The only sounds were gloves snapping, pens scratching, and the low hum of the ventilator. Defensive bruises covered her forearms, she had fought back. Fingernails cracked, edges torn, embedded with microscopic traces of skin. Ligature bruises on her throat formed a distinct pattern, not rope, not cord. Fingers. Cause of death, manual strangulation. Under ultraviolet light, faint adhesive residue shimmered around her wrist, tape removed in haste. Samples went for DNA analysis. The result came back with scientific certainty, a full match to Dr. Marcus Brooks. Inside the house, luminol exposed what the eye could not, a glowing trail of blue footprints from the kitchen to the garage, the same pattern found on Marcus's hospital shoes. A spray bottle of bleach lay wrapped in a towel. One partial print on the handle. Same match. Science does not accuse. It reveals. That afternoon, Detective Nia Thompson sat across from the medical examiner reviewing the report. He cleaned, she said quietly. And he planned to. The examiner nodded once. But she fought. Hard. Outside, rain began to fall against the morgue window, soft and steady, like time refusing to stop. At 10:42 p.m., a warrant was signed. By 11:15, police found Marcus in the hospital parking lot, still in his white coat, a stethoscope draped around his neck. When they approached, he didn't flinch. He didn't ask why. He only said, "You're too late." As they cuffed him, lightning flashed across the dark Texas sky, brief, bright, merciless. For the first time, the healer was the suspect. And the silence that once filled his house now belonged to the dead. At first, Dr. Marcus Brooks looked like any man caught in grief, eyes hollow, voice low, posture straight. But detectives had seen that look before. It was the stillness that comes after something has already broken. In the interrogation room, the light buzzed faintly overhead. Marcus folded his hands, careful, deliberate. He spoke as if rehearsed. I left for work at 8. Came home, found her. He said it 3 times the same way. Detective Nia Thompson leaned forward. Your badge scanned in late that morning, she said. You weren't at the hospital when you think you were. He blinked. Once. Too slow. Maybe the system's off, he murmured. Maybe I came home early. The words hung there, thin as air. His phone told another story. Deleted searches, how to remove blood smell from tile floors. Transfers of cash to a false name. Hidden folders with timestamps matching the night of the murder. When the DNA report hit the table, Marcus didn't look at it. He just stared upward, lips barely moving. She hurt my son. For 20 seconds, no one spoke. The hum of the light filled the silence like judgment. Weeks later, the courtroom overflowed. Reporters lined the back, sketch artists filled the corners. Elena's family sat together, holding a single framed photo of her smiling beside Eli. The prosecution built its case like a staircase, one careful step at a time. DNA beneath her nails. Bleach residue. The glove. The search history. And finally, the motive, revenge for a wound he couldn't prove existed. The defense called it grief. They said he'd snapped, a father blinded by pain. But grief doesn't clean. Grief doesn't plan. As evidence rolled across the projector screen, the jury barely moved. A fan clicked somewhere in the silence, counting seconds until the end. When they returned, their faces said everything. Guilty. The word landed soft, but final. Marcus Brooks didn't cry when the verdict was read. He didn't flinch when the judge said 50 years to life. He only closed his eyes, as if sleep might undo what he'd done. Across the aisle, Elena's mother wept into her daughter's arms. Her sobs filled the courtroom until even the reporters stopped writing. When the gavel struck, it didn't sound like justice. It sounded like something breaking that would never heal. Outside, the South Dallas sky was clear for the first time in days. Neighbors stood in small circles, praying under the morning sun. Some held candles, others held hands. They spoke her name aloud, refusing to let it vanish into another headline. Inside, the prosecutor packed her files. On the table, one photograph remained, Elena Carter on the porch swing with Eli, sunlight dancing across their faces. That same swing still moves when the wind passes through Ridgemont Lane. Some say it's the breeze. Others say it's memory. The Brooks house sold within months. New owners painted over the walls, replaced the floors, changed the locks. But silence stays. It hums beneath new laughter, waiting to be remembered. Eli now lives with his aunt. He speaks rarely, but sometimes, while drawing, he hums a tune, the same hymn Elena used to sing while making breakfast. A melody of calm in a world that took hers away. Elena Carter was 28 years old. She dreamed of nursing school, of helping children like Eli. She believed in kindness, in faith, in forgiveness, virtues the world mistook for weakness. Her life ended in a house built on trust. Her silence still speaks. And silence, once broken, never sounds the same again. We tell these stories not to shock, but to remember. If this story moved you, take a moment to honor the memory of Elena Carter, and every woman whose voice was taken behind closed doors. Subscribe to stay with us as we uncover the truths hidden behind perfect lives and quiet homes. Because every silence has a story. And we'll be here to tell it.